We are often asked, what is an innovation breakthrough? Or said differently, is my idea really that powerful? Will it make a big difference? Will it create a lot of value for us? And there are four questions that we often ask to validate whether this potential idea could be a breakthrough. The first one is it based on trends? The second one is, does it serve a market need? The third one is, does it have a business model? And ultimately, last is, do you have barriers to entry to make sure that others can't copy you quickly? If you can answer yes to those four questions, then you might have a potential breakthrough. Let's talk about each one of those things in more detail. Why does the idea have to be based on trends?
I think the most important thing is it has to be based on not only kind of current trends, but emerging trends. That's why this emerging and sustaining trend, whether it's about digital transformation and capability, or whether it's about biotechnology and gene splicing, what's that emerging and sustaining trend? Because that allows you to get into a market first and establish a leadership position which you can sustain for a longer period of time.
For me, trends are important because they are a forecast of the future. And the idea that you have today that you want to work on has got to be relevant in the future. And so the trends kind of fast forward for you to say, what does the world look like 3 years from now or 5 years from now? And can you predict what that world looks like? And in that world, will your idea be relevant? In that world, will the competition be inferior to your solution? In that world, is this idea still relevant? So often we talk about ideas today, but in reality, they're going to be about the future.
And so they are often kind of disruptive trends or accelerating trends, because if you just focused on trends alone, everybody's focused on the same thing. So it's when you recognize something that's potentially disruptive or potentially getting to a tipping point, that's when you've got something that you can really base a innovation breakthrough on.
Now, there are obvious trends that we talk about, demographic shifts, which we see in the United States, for example. There are obvious trends in terms of technologies, whether it's AI, big data, Internet of Things, or whether it's green and recycling and the green economy, or CRISPR and the future of where healthcare is going. And these are all trends which kind of tell us what the world's going to look like next. And in that world, you just got to start thinking about what the problems are. And in that world, what are the best solutions? Now you're the first one to get there. And is it going to be better than everybody else? This is why trends are important.
And particularly looking at trends that are adjacent to your space, or they could be even beyond your space, but you probably are pretty comfortable, and your competitors are very comfortable with trends that are going on within your defined space. It's things that are happening in adjacent spaces, things that new startups are going after, things that are just coming on board that could completely restructure the competitive map that you're working within.
Now, along with trends, we also encourage you to think of events, and events are important. We had 9/11, at which point anything with safety and security was the smartest thing to invest into. We had elections, political climate where somebody gets elected and the whole world changes again for that matter. Or there could be a tsunami, as in Indonesia, or more recently, the pandemic with COVID-19.
Yeah, and I think that argues, particularly since many of those are unpredictable, but you know they're going to happen. It's a question of when and how likely they are to happen. But that's what argues for a much broader portfolio of innovation ideas, so that you're ready to pull the trigger when something happens, so that you're on top of those emerging trends, you're on top of those ways that you can take advantage of them.
So if somebody comes up to you and says, I've got a great idea, ask them, what trends is that based on, and what events are there are supporting it. The second question you should ask, of course, is what human needs does it serve? Ron, can you provide examples of human needs?
Well, so the perception of human needs, so yes, food, housing, shelter, etc. But there are perceptions of those needs that are changing. We used to think about anti-aging. Now we think about longevity and aging beautifully. So the perception of people's needs around these basic human things of health, happiness, etc., are as important as the actual trend. You know what the need is. What you don't necessarily know is what people's behavior is in response to their changing perception of that need.
If you're going to come up with any solution, it had better be serving a human need. If that human need is being served, that human being will perhaps pay you money for it. So you are giving them value, and in exchange for the value, they might return some value back to you. These needs, they've been around as human beings for thousands of years. We don't change that much biologically. And so, of course, air, water, food, bathrooms, sleep, social, education, transportation, all those are basic needs. And if you can work on those basic needs, it's easier. But if you can really get the nuance on that, and that's what Ron was talking about, the nuance on it, then you might be able to do much more.